How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we're talking about this, that, and everything in between. And today we're going to be talking about some pretty interesting stuff. I know if y'all haven't been paying attention, for those of y'all that are streaming, for those of y'all that are like content creators that are like uh, wondering what's been happening with your traffic. I know, especially the ones that are on YouTube, you guys have really been negatively impacted by the way the election has broke the internet. So uh, think about how right now today, if you guys have been looking, there's been a lot less going on TikTok, and there's kind of a question in the air as to what happened. So today I decided I was going to do a show and go ahead and talk about that. So join me. Join me as I dive into the controversy of trying to figure out TikTok and what could really be going on with it being banned from the airways. Because as of earlier this month, Arkansas is one of the additional states that has decided to ban TikTok off of the airways. We've got about 39 or 40 states right now that have banned the use of TikTok across the airways and have prohibited the use of TikTok by the employees, government employees. So people can't even have them on their phones. It's getting really serious as far as the government agents are, of course. But when it comes down to the civilians can kind of you can do whatever you want, but you're still looking at the fact that it is blocked off of the natural airways. So you're not going to be you might have it before the ban accessible, and you just can't really do much with it. It allows you to maybe see some of the content that is being shown from outside of the US. But as a content creator, you definitely understand what I'm talking about when I tell you you can't stream anymore. TikTok didn't block you, the US blocked TikTok. That's what happened. So let's move on into this, dive into the story a little real deep and see what we got going on. TikTok is one of those social media giants, number two to YouTube. YouTube has the most, has I think 2.7 or 2.8 billion users. TikTok has a little over 1.5 billion users, maybe 1.7 billion users, but that's probably going to change in the upcoming year. TikTok is facing a lawsuit that could potentially ban it from airways everywhere, because I mean, as it stands right now, it's already banned in the airways. It's been banned in at least 10 states, confirmed. Usage wise by government agencies, as I said before, it's been prohibited where it cannot be used by government workers in about 39 or 40 states. So as they work towards banning it off of the airways where it won't even be used, it'll go dark. You see that the traffic of TikTok is going to rapidly decline. Now, we're going to be able to talk about how does that impact your investment for those of you that invest in TikTok. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe as we continue on with this particular discussion and join the membership. And if you guys got something to say, make sure that you dive in. You have the opportunity because we are now jointly running from Twitch and Twitter and YouTube. So everybody's in the same place for the most part. Make sure that you guys click that link if you want to get in here and say something on the forefront. You can approve a mic, approve the camera, and get on in here. And then as long as you're over the age of 18, you can join the conversation and we can talk about what's going to happen with you Gen Zs and your favorite TikTok thingy. Moving on. Arkansas has filed a lawsuit against ByteDance, and that is the parent company of TikTok. Also filing a lawsuit against Meta, which is the parent company of Facebook and Instagram. So understand Facebook and Instagram is dealing with some problems too. And they're citing concerns over the privacy and the impact on children's mental health. Arkansas's legal action against TikTok is leading to take a strong stance against TikTok, with Attorney General Tim Griffin leading efforts to hold the platform accountable for its practices. A recent ruling from Union County Circuit Court denied TikTok's motion to dismiss a lawsuit filed by Griffin, allowing the case to proceed. The lawsuit alleges that TikTok engages in deceptive trade practices and poses risks to users' privacy, particularly concerning data security and potentially access by the Chinese government. Woo! Now, on a broader context of the lawsuit in Arkansas is part of a larger trend with multiple states, including Nebraska, Kansas, uh, filing lawsuits, and they're all pretty much the same against TikTok. These lawsuits claim that the platform is harmful to children's mental health and has designed its features to be addictive. The legal action also extend to other social media giants like Meta, and Meta, being the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, is highlighting concerns over youth exploitation and mental health issues associated with social media usage. Now, when you start talking about mental health issues related to social media usage, you're talking about the short attention span of the average individual, and then you're talking about the diagnoses of ADHD or ADD for those individuals that may actually have a shorter attention span. So we are looking at a lot more than just sitting here saying, "Oh yeah, I don't like them," and something about the Chinese government. No, it's really a thing. The average individual doesn't like to spend more than 15 to 30 seconds paying attention to one specific thing, and because of that, they have developed a short attention span. And you start dealing with the youth. The kids do not like to sit anywhere for an hour and pay attention to one specific thing. And those children that tend to have more energy than the adults are then perceived as hyperactive. And then those children with a short attention span and hyperactivity are then diagnosed with something called attention deficit disorder, which is ADD, or attention uh, deficit hyperactive disorder, which is ADHD. And then you have an issue where you have a quote unquote special needs child that can't perform regular school because he or she can't sit and concentrate for an extended period of time and try to figure something out. I'm not going to try to utilize my medical experience to be able to decipher that, but what I am going to tell you is that that's the claim on the table. So currently, TikTok is embroiled in a legal battle at the federal level, where it has challenged a law that could lead to a nationwide ban of the app in the US. And what we were talking about before is as late as January 29th of 2025, that where Joe Biden had passed a bill, and that bill was supposed to say that if ByteDance did not have a US branch, so a local foreign domestic company that was owned and operated by uh, someone in the US. It didn't specifically require a US person to have it. It was just supposed to be owned and operated in the US, which might actually mean that in some way, shape, or form, a US person might have control over it. Having it on US territory, it has to abide by the US laws primarily. And the company does not have to abide by the US laws if it is not a US based company, but the company cannot broadcast in US airspace if it is not going to comply with the laws in the United States. This is going to require ByteDance, and you have to understand ByteDance is the parent company of not just TikTok. It is also the parent company of Clappers that has recently come out in the past year. And that one is supposed to be an adult based platform similar to TikTok in its more archaic form. And they're supposed to divest its ownership or face the ban, citing national security concerns as of January 29th. So by February 1st, February 3rd, the full platform will go dark in US territory, where you won't be able to see and or potentially use the platform at all in the US as a US user. Now, the outcome of these legal proceedings could significantly impact TikTok's operations in the US as well as its user base, because 100 and I said before, 1.5 or 1.7 billion US users are part of the platform. So the platform would take a significant hit, data wise, usage wise, advertisement wise, if they lost that 1.5 or 1.7 billion user traffic to the ban. Now, what else is going to happen with that is that if all of these users are not able to utilize clappers, they have some other social media sites that are out there because of our monopoly laws, where no one service can be provided by one entity. So you have clappers that's still broadcasting right now. You have, I think it's called ADV, that's out there right now, that's supposed to be a quote unquote adult version of clappers, which adult version of TikTok. You also have Twitter and Twitch. Twitch has a much smaller platform than Twitter and YouTube. I would say Twitter is probably number 3 according to the data that I had looked at before. Twitter would be up under TikTok for now, but Twitter, being a US branch, would still be here after TikTok gets banned in January, which means that Twitter would become the number 2 source, and then Twitch would be number 3 source. There's, I do believe I said before, ADV, which just started out, so they're probably going to have under a million or maybe a couple million users. You're going to be looking at Clappers that has under a million US users, that may have close to a couple million users. You're looking at Twitter. They have, I think, about 500 million users, more or less. And then you have TikTok that is like a, a billion. And then Twitter, I mean, TikTok had 1.5, Twitter had close to a billion, and then YouTube has the 2.5, 2.7 billion, 2.9 billion users. So as the tier system goes, it's definitely a massive hit for the economy, the social media platform economy, because any companies that was running off of TikTok from the US are not going to be able to run off of TikTok from the US. But those users from TikTok are going to have to branch out to some of the other platforms, which means that you're probably going to see a larger usage on YouTube. You're probably going to see a larger quantity of usage on some of the other platforms that I mentioned. The more adult platform is going to be divided between YouTube and Twitter, because Twitter is being deemed a newsworthy platform. So whenever there's news, you report it on Twitter, you get a larger fan base. Whenever it is not news, you probably are going to find it on YouTube. So the two tag team US companies that may be the most dominant in social media starting in 2025 after the ban will probably be Twitter and YouTube. So if you're trying to figure out which direction to go, whoever backed the the red team in the last election, you want to get on top of their platform, because their platform's about to blow up. How does this affect the content creators? Well, the ban is raising significant First Amendment concerns, as millions of American users relied on TikTok for expression and business opportunities. Content creators have voiced their fears about losing platform that has been crucial for their livelihood. And I mean, apparently the US government is doing their own thing. The legal arguments presented by TikTok emphasize the need for clear justification from the government if it intends to impose such drastic measures. And I don't understand what clarity are you looking for? Because look, uh, in the law is written, and the law is written clearly. In the law dictates that you either do something or you don't do something. If you do something, then you get rewarded or punished. And if you don't do something, you get rewarded or you get punished. In this particular scenario with TikTok, the law dictates that if you do not have an American base, then you will be shut down. If you have an American base, you will have to adhere to the laws, rules, and practices in America. If you don't follow that, then you will be shut down. So when they say that they want clear justification as to what they want you to do and what measures needs to be followed, well, first of all, your information is going to have to be collected and stored in U.S. area, not accessible by foreign countries. You're also going to have to keep a more accurate information stream, because what we also have to understand is that there are a lot of um, platforms where first we have to start off. One of the reasons why I'm understanding why they're complaining about their kids, when you create a Gmail, most of them say that they have to be 18 to have the Gmail. Now, kids don't have to be 18 to have the Gmail. They can lie to Google and say that they're 18. All you have to do is submit an age that is above the age of 18. Then you have a Gmail. If you activate an account anywhere, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, whatever, because they are not legally required to do a background check on their users when their users set up an account. If you claim that you're over the age of 18 when you start up your Gmail account, then your Gmail account will transfer over its data that you are an adult. You get on the social media platform, you're going to resubmit the age limits and say, I'm 22, 25, whatever. Who cares? You might use your current birthday, but you'll use a different year to suggest the fact that you are 5, 10, 20 years older than what you really are. And that will allow you to access these adult specific platforms. In addition to that, because it is not parental control, because your parents didn't set up your account, which would restrict you from seeing adult content. In addition to that, you are able to see stuff that you're not supposed to be able to see. You're not old enough to be able to process yet, but it's there. Now, the worst part about this is, so Fireball says that he doesn't have TikTok. Well, you're not missing out anymore, because nobody has TikTok. This week this week was one of the first weeks that a lot of people started. Even I was experiencing. I was like, whoa. Like, I went in there, I noticed a couple of times I was streaming this past week and TikTok wasn't up there, and I was like, what, TikTok tripping. And then you heard me say it on the show quite a few times. It's like, TikTok tripping right now. Hey, I don't even know. I'm over here trying to stream with two different sides, and then I see, oh snap, they didn't ban them on this side of the country too. Like, well, so much for that. But when you're building a brand on the internet, you're not supposed to be building a brand in one spot. You should build a brand in one spot, but you should be trying to build the brand in multiple locations at the same time, and trying to do a slow progression where that brand can potentially build the traffic that you needed to build to be monetized in multiple locations, so that you can receive a revenue from multiple locations. One of the bigger podcasts that have millions of views or millions of subscribers typically have not just free to use platforms. They have pay to use platforms where people have to pay to get up there and watch the podcast, and people actually pay to watch the podcast. And those people who pay to watch the podcast have a freer First Amendment friendly podcast, because they're not restricted to the advertisement of the platform, but they're not actually paid by the platform they're using. They're paying a service of using the platform, and then they're getting paid by the fans that watch the platform. And I encourage everybody who's anybody, if you're gonna come and watch the platform, that you should definitely try to throw me something. Oh, I gotta tell Bricko Mode. I gotta tell Bricko Mode what happened, because YouTube got me, man. YouTube got me. Guess what? Guess what Bitcoin did? So what YouTube did, you sent me 30, YouTube took half. I was like, bruh. They didn't even take like a percentage. They just said, whoop. We're gonna take half and we're gonna give him. I was like, whoa. So definitely want to let Bricko Mo. And did Bitcoin go up? We're talking about Bitcoin tomorrow. You're and to answer your question though, yeah, it went up to about 75,000. So Bitcoin did go up. Bitcoin went up during the election. But we're going to be talking about Bitcoin tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow's show, we're going to be talking about gold, silver, the depreciating value of the US dollar, and Bitcoin. So just note, we're going to be talking about money tomorrow too. I know. Usually I'm talking about something relationship based, but so many things have changed in the economy so far. I'm like, I got to cover a lot of these topics. I can't just do it 3 days a week. Then I've got the writer is supposed to be coming up, so I got to schedule a day for him. And I'm going to be scheduling him sometime next week. And I got to throw him in after Wednesday because I already filled in Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I have to go talk to Sarah, send her an email, and find out if she's free to get in here and do it. I'm gonna give her my email so that she can send me an email, because the platform she and I are talking on is not actually, what I'll do is I will reach out to her company, and that way I'll be able to find out what's going on, because her company had a platform set up for a short period of time, and then I think that platform probably timed out. So I'm gonna reach out to her company, and then I'm gonna see if I can get my hands on uh her information so that I can get her onto the show, because I still want to get her onto the show. I could care less what's going on with her business with the people that I was affiliated with. All I care about is getting my people onto the show. So as soon as I see Brickle Mode, I just thought about it. I'm glad when Fireball popped in, I wanted to be able to tell Brickle Mode what happened. Since we're talking about throwing money at podcasts, I tell you what, how TikTok, not TikTok, YouTube took half. YouTube got me like Ike Turner. It was like, with my money. I was like, what? Okay, so back to the spin. Um, so the lawsuit is bringing to the forefront the central issue of privacy concerns on social media platforms, which is pretty much everybody's got this problem. And that's one of the reasons why you're going to start seeing a lot of people really leaning towards VPNs in the United States, where other countries have a ban on VPNs. The United States actually has no ban on VPNs. And if you use a VPN, you have less issues. Actually, I was thinking about running a show about the hijacking platforms, because platforms like Yahoo, that I thought phased out, actually has an algorithm where if something happens and it ends up on your laptop, and then every time you try to do a Google search, your browser is hijacked by YouTube. I mean, not YouTube. Your browser is hijacked by Yahoo, and then you end up Google searching on Yahoo when you have no interest in Google searching on Yahoo. And Yahoo is a more inferior Google's a more inferior search engine, in my opinion, because it does not have as much detailed accessibility to the pages that Google has. So you'll have a very, very different experience with searches, images, detailed answers. If you're looking for a question that has a value, a numerical value to it, Google will give you a numerical value to it. Yahoo will give you several different websites that might mention the value of it. And that's one of the reasons why Google has become one of the best or one of the most widely used search engines in the country, if not in the world, because the Google algorithm has uh, been enhanced to take all of the information related to that particular question, piece it together, and then put you at the top of the screen, especially if you're using Google's experimental upgrade. and give you a direct answer, where it'll tell you based on all of the searches that it's found that this is the information that applies to what you're looking for. So instead of you having to look through and read 20 or 30 different websites to find the answers to the question, you actually just have to go into Google, type in a direct question like you're talking to Google, and then Google will more often than not give you a summary at the top of the thing telling you the answer to your question, or reasonably close to the answer to your question, where you can hypothesize that based on what Google said, you can assume either yes or no to your question. But sometimes Google does say yes, and sometimes Google does say no. Nevertheless, uh, with the increase with the increasing amount of data being collected by and stored by these companies, it's natural to wonder what's being done with it and how it's being protected. I can tell you what's being done with it. It's being sold. First of all, the data is not being sold for any type of malicious intent, but the data is being sold to advertisers. And those advertisers that get your data utilizes that data and puts it into another algorithm where you are force fed ads based on the data related to your searches, your interests, the things that you're looking at on the website. You can see it right now on YouTube. America does it. If you Google search enough stuff on your website, on your computer, you just really have to. I think it's anywhere between 1 and 4 Google searches for a specific type of item. I guarantee you, right after that, every ad on your screen, whether it be YouTube, whether it be pop-up ads on a completely different site, is all about that item. So if you Google search cars, it'll start giving you car commercials. You Google search Second Amendment stuff, it'll start showing you Second Amendment stuff. You Google search trying to find a tutor, it'll give you teacher platforms. If you're Google searching like ways to make money, every get rich quick commercial will be thrown at you. So they force feed you advertisement. And this is one of the ways that advertisers have been more successful with increasing their ROI, uh, because they're be able to put up a smaller quantity of money, reach the same audience that they used to reach before, and get a larger return. And that's going to mean that the more of the people, because typically the rule of advertisement is that approximately 2%, 2 to 5% of people react to your advertisement. So the way it's supposed to work is that statistically 5% of people will react to your ad. Half of that would react positively to your ad. So they say when you're cutting out the probability of failure, if you're talking about the probability of success, on average, about 2% or 2.5% of people that see your ad, and you round down to 2% because that's how you get closer to success, or overachieving success. 2% of the people that look at your ad or your product or whatever responds positively to your product, and that means that they're going to see it and then they're going to click on it. That's going to generate a positive action towards not swiping away, not looking at it and being like, it's whatever. 2% of people, which is 2 out of every 100 people that see it, will click on it and go there statistically. Now, the other difference is that each action has a 2% variation of going into another action. So if you want somebody to look at your website or your ad on Google search, you have to first of all be on the first page, because otherwise nobody looks at page 3. Very few people go to page 2. If you're on the first page, within the first 10, you're more than likely going to be selected. That's 2%. Once you click it and go to the page, if you want them to watch a video, there's a 2% chance that if the video is not auto playing on that page, that they will actually play that video. However, if the video is auto played, then the likelihood of them seeing the video in their subconscious, even if they don't desire to look at the video, it is still there. It is still playing. Now, if they're supposed to be trying to buy something, they look at the price. Depending on the price, now there's a 2% chance they will click on it and it'll go to the cart. Once it gets to the cart, there's a 2% chance that they will go through the motions of attempting to buy the item. Once they get to the final price of the item, where it is the cost of the item, the taxes and shipping costs included into the final price, then they have to check their payment option to find out if they really want to buy it. And that is the last step for them to decide, I am actually going to buy this. There is a 2% chance that that person is actually going to get up out of their seat, go to wherever their wallet or their purse is, get their debit card off of their pocket. And all of this takes effort. And that's one of the reasons why they started doing digital wallets, where you can put your debit or credit card into your cell phone. And if you are searching the internet, you can make purchases just by clicking a button on your cell phone, which aids advertisers in the impulse buy, because you could talk yourself out of it from the frustration of trying to remember where you put your wallet, or if you're female, where you put your purse, and the frustration of which card do you want to use, and the frustration of having to type in all of this information just to make this purchase. All of these actions requires the drive. The impulse buy is having the ability to just push a button and the purchase is made, which is one of the reasons why you notice on Amazon they have a Amazon and PayPal have storing credit cards and debit cards as a primary source of making a purchase. Then you have on Amazon, Amazon has the buy now feature, which if all of your purchase information is the same, your shipping information is the same, nothing is being changed. If you look at an item and you want it right now, you can click the buy now option and it will automatically charge the primary card and ship the product to the primary address without you having to go through the process of filling all that information in. Only when you're sending it somewhere different do you have to go in there, you have to add it to cart and then go through the process of changing the address and making sure it gets shipped to the correct address. But if you're trying to send it directly to you've never moved, you've been in the same place for a long period of time, you can just buy now, and that allows them to increase sales. So this is going to be where the concerns are going to come through with the data that people have access to, because your credit card options when you're purchasing off of TikTok, your personal information, when you do those surveys that are asking you about your age and your gender and your race and your occupation and your income source, all of that stuff is public record. See, back when the internet first came out in 2009, you had a very inaccurate and very limited data set. When you claim that somebody's your relative, nowadays it is notated somewhere that you can literally have a free background check done on a lot of people, and I can promise you it. Some people have made their mark on the internet so well without even being content creators, just by being a user of social media platforms, where you can type people's names in, their first and last name, and you can actually get social media platforms, photos, videos, and some of the public information, the PI websites will tell you what political position they have. It'll tell you how many people are in their family, what everybody's occupation is, where their house is, what kind of car they drive. Some of them, when you start dealing with people who almost got married or almost had babies and all this stuff, you got wish lists for weddings. You've got baby shower wish list. You've got all this, which if somebody wants to steal your identity, if you've got a wedding wish list, you're about to get married, which means somebody's got wedding money. If you've got a baby shower wish list, somebody's pregnant. You know all of this information before you meet this person. I'm going to be honest with you. I was able to push a couple buttons and Google somebody's name that I was doing business with, and I was able to get so much information before I met the person. I knew what they looked like, I knew what their name was, and then I was able to walk up on that person and talk to them like we known each other for years. And it is intimidating, not going to lie. When a complete stranger knows more about you than you do, because you put so much of your information out on social media. So I always tell you guys, when you guys get on the podcast, I tell you guys, be careful what you do and what you say. I encourage you to get on the podcast and have the ability to speak appropriately on the podcast, and say what you want to say. And since it is a public forum, I don't really care what your age is, but I do prefer that if you're getting on the video that you are over the age of 18. However, if you're learning how to make and save money and how to grow and make better decisions, I don't mind if you're under the age of 18 and you're listening to the podcast, because I'm going to tell you something that you're going to learn from. Even if you're clowning around on a podcast, I'm going to tell you something that you're going to learn from, which, as a teacher, I prefer to teach you even when you're having fun. So clown around a little bit, but you got to be careful what you say and how you say it, because, well, one, I'm not going to get myself canceled, but the other issue is that the stuff that you do right now that you feel like it's nothing, when it becomes a primary factor of your career choice, when it becomes the obstacle in your ability to buy a house, or ability to stay in the current house that you're in, or the ability to make a purchase, that's when you're going to understand that, oh crap, I should not have done that. But what you did was so many years ago, you can't undo it. And the bottom 99% of the United States is not rich. We cannot pay somebody to scrub the internet and take all of the damaging content about us off of the internet. So we have to leave it up there. There are some places that actually, and this is one of the worst parts about it, they pay big companies like YouTube, Twitch, Twitter to get data information from you, and then any voluntary data submissions that you do when you're filling out applications for loans, when you're filling out personal information to make purchases, to buy things, and stuff to that effect, set up accounts, all of that stuff is sold to a third party who collects your data. And then in order to get your data removed off of that site, they will sell you the ability to delete it off of their platform. So now they paid somebody to get the information, and you got to pay them more to take it down. That's where they're making a profit from, to get it. And then they're making another profit from all the other people who rent the usage of the database, so that they can do background checks on people, do searches on people, and find out who's who and what's what. And it's crazy, but this is how you are able to find out who you're dealing with, and whether or not you want to mess with those people. Nobody has a background check app directly on their cell phone where they can just scan somebody's face and it tell them if this is a good person or a bad person to talk to. But you also have to deal with redemption. If you've ever made a mistake in your past, or ever did something that you regretted from your past, you learned from it and you changed. If they scan your face and your negative past comes up, you will forever be condemned for the things you did in the past and never have the opportunity to improve. And that's why I tell you, young bucks, that y'all got to make better decisions these days between like 10 and 20, because back in my day, they used to tell you, well, at least when you become 18, most of this stuff is squashed, because criminal juvenile records are sealed unless you perform the exact same action as an adult. Usually your juvenile behavior is sealed. Anything that you did in high school doesn't carry over to college unless you burn the school down or something. If you didn't hurt anybody, nobody knows that you were a juvenile delinquent in high school. When you get into college, they just know that you got money and they're taking you in. Now, in 2024, if you go into any location now, it is on the internet. So the previous institution that you used to utilize to act a fool in does not have to broadcast that you are a menace to society. You broadcast it that you're a menace to society. Now, somebody else is looking at your behavior before they bring you in for an interview. And then when they start experiencing or expressing to you your Dennis the Menace style behavior, you can't even say, I I'm better than that now, because you've got how many years on your podcast, how many years on your channel where you were clowning and acting a fool. I told you guys before, when you're setting up an appearance for yourself, you don't want to have your social media platform with you doing stuff inappropriate. The kids these days, they're waving their firearms around, and I've bought quite a few accessories for my firearm in recent times, and I still don't feel comfortable with doing a podcast showing off all of the stuff that I did with my firearm, because one, it's supposed to be there to protect you. It's not there to impress other people. Two, it is not supposed to be something that you utilize to get a bunch of clickbait. So waving your firearm around and hanging out your car with your firearm, it's not something that you're supposed to have for everybody to see and be like, oh, cool, he's cool because he's got a firearm. Because your enemy knows what you got. They know how to get something bigger. So when they decide, oh, well, you got a switch, that's okay. I've got a full auto banana clip. Now, you're compromising your own safety by advertising. But they also told us, and this is one of the interesting things, they told us in college in 2012, which is a few years after the internet started, 2012 and 2013. When you do things like the sticker on the back of the car that has the two or three kids, the dog, the two adults, the mother and father, grandma, and all that stuff, that sticker on the back of the car, while you think that's cute, it tells somebody the owner of this vehicle is a family of 5. When you get a bumper sticker that says that your kid is an honor student, it tells the person behind that vehicle, the owner of this car has a kid that goes to this school. And now think about this. Now, when you start branding certain things on your vehicle that shows what your passions and beliefs are, the person that's looking at that vehicle knows what your family life is like. So if you ended up with somebody that didn't like you and they wanted to do something, what information did you just voluntarily give away? You got the baby on board side. You think that baby on board means that people are going to drive better around you. No, they're going to cut you off anyway. Flip your car and don't really care about it. But somebody else sees that, oh, so the owner of this car has a baby. CIA decides to determine how volatile their clients, their custom, not their clients or customers, their employees are, by how much they can be leveraged by their family life, by their personal life. If you've got damaging stuff being advertised from your car, you're setting yourself up for extortion, blackmail, all these things that can negatively impact you if you are not careful with what you're doing. So when you are advertising these things, that somebody wants to do something, now they can go to the school, and now your kid's got problems because you advertise what school your kid goes to. You've got problems because something happened, some of the kids come up missing. It has always been a thing. That's why one of the reasons why that wealthy people don't have any decals on their car that's not factory made. Some people even take off the factory made decals off of the vehicle. And the make and model of the vehicle does not have to be on the vehicle, just the license plate of the vehicle. So what kind of vehicle it is doesn't need to be readily known. But think about this, for in addition to most of the vehicles that you see that are being utilized by those that are of the higher, more wealthy persuasion, they're typically generically, especially when they're not the fancy showing off my own personal car thing, they're typically generically either all black vehicles or all white vehicles. It's like when you see a convoy of one a successful company, all the vehicles look the same. If it's a line of Escalades, if it's a line of Rolls Royces or Land Rovers or whatever, well, they probably wouldn't use Rolls Royce. You'd probably see a convoy of either Escalades, Navigators, Explorers. You would see Land Rovers or Range Rovers. All the vehicles would look the same in the convoy. You would never see um, a hatchback in one, two coupes, a convertible, a SUV, a bus. You wouldn't see that. You wouldn't see that. You all of the vehicles are exactly the same. Why is that? Because you don't know which car that person is in. So it's harder for you to have somebody take action on that person when that person is in a moving convoy. When that moving convoy, you can't tell if he's in the first car or the last car or the car in the middle. Typically, you expect the person to be in the car in the middle because you would expect the detail to be in the front or the back of the car. But sometimes the person is in the front of the convoy, and sometimes the person's in the back of the convoy. But by not advertising the boss's car, you can't tell, oh, that's the boss's car from afar. So when they start talking about how TikTok is being sued for releasing confidential information from their data users, these are the reasons why that is a thing. They're not just picking on TikTok because it's TikTok. This information can be used to steal your identity or attack you personally and leverage your most valuable friends and family. So it is a legitimate complaint, which is why the judge did not dismiss the motion to dismiss, or did not approve the motion to dismiss that was filed by TikTok. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people are starting to have less accessibility to TikTok this past week. And the fact that the lawsuit is still alleging that not only TikTok, but US based Meta, which is Facebook, uh, is also being sued for the exact same thing, where they are misusing the data, the user's data. This concern is going to resonate with anyone who's ever used a social media platform, because you have to think most of them are pretty much doing the same thing when you start talking about selling your personal information online, including YouTube. The only difference is that who they're selling it to. and, and that's pretty much it. Now, the other key issues at play here is the impact of social media on children's mental health. Well, you've got these kids that are watching adult videos, they're watching adult content, they're watching stuff that they're not old enough to be able to process correctly, and it is causing them to behave differently than what they would have behaved had they not been exposed to that until they were mentally mature enough to be exposed to that. And it's a lot different than watching slasher films and being afraid of the dark. It's that you have adult content like the girls that are wearing the scantily clad outfits. That you've got the adult content like the guys that are using drugs online. You've got the guys that are showing their weapons online. You've got the uh, police chase videos where you've got the kids that are out there using these firearms on other kids at traffic lights. You've got the police brutality videos where the police officers are hurting people on the streets and breaking into people's houses and hurting them in the house, where very few times is there a follow-up video that shows that that police officer that committed that crime actually got arrested and went to jail for that. So you have more issues that are coming about from the the ability to have free reign access to social media as a minor, where you don't really understand what's going on. And you have to remember, here in the US, the kids are not being parented by the parents, the kids are being parented by the TV. And I'm gonna say it like that because truth, mom and dad, when we were growing up, they would look at what we're looking at before we got to look at it. They would play what we're playing before we got to play with it. These days, go find something to do, and then the kid is on the phone. What are you looking at? None of your business is the conversation. And fact is that if the parents don't know what the kids are looking at, the parents can't confirm that the children are looking at stuff that's safe for them to look at. The parents don't have time to sit with the kids and watch the same TV shows that the kids watch, because they actually have some children's television shows that have more adult level content on it than the adults are aware of. And because they think it's a children's show, so I'm going to let my child watch it, but they never go and watch it, the innuendos that are in Scooby-Doo are so serious that as an adult, middle-aged adult, I can tell you, if my parents would have knew what was going on back then. But you got to understand, back then the censorship laws were not as deep. But if my parents would have seen that, nevertheless, they would have been like, you probably shouldn't watch Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo's a little bit too old for you. Adult Swim is a little bit too old for you. You shouldn't be watching. Even if they censor the curse words, you shouldn't be watching under the age of whatever age to say and do certain things. The ability to have uh, modesty in your vocabulary, not just your attire, just modesty in your vocabulary, where you're not outright cursing out adults as a minor child. You would only have that modesty until you observe the what was it not Big Mama's House, Bebe's Kids. That's a cartoon. But the little baby in a diaper is cursing out grown folks. And that's the kind of stuff that the kids are ending up being exposed to on the internet and TV and Netflix and Hulu and everywhere except the Disney Channel. But they have some adult level stuff on the Disney Channel because American Dad and The Simpsons is on the Disney Channel. So there are some things that the kids can get, even if it's mild, that it could be above their age limit, where it's considered watched with parental guidance. PG means parental guidance. Even if it's PG 13, where you got to be 13 and your parent has to be able to explain to you what's going on here, it's supposed to be watched with enlightenment. So as soon as the parent sees something that is above the child's age level or above the child's mental capacity, even if the child's age limit is 13, but the child still kind of behaves like a 10-year-old, it's like, I don't know, my kid's not behaving like he's old enough to understand what this is about. We're going to change this show. That is what parental guidance is supposed to be about. And NC-17 is like you ain't nobody supposed to be seeing that until you're 17. And rated R is everything that is like you gotta be grown. And then not yet rated, you just really gotta be grown, because if they can't rate it, that means it's that bad. That you think from G to G is general. Yeah, and you got to get you some guidance on it, but it doesn't matter what age it is, you got to have guidance. And from G all the way to NR is worse than R, and R is worse than NC-17. So you got to be at least 17 to watch NC-17, and you should be over the age of 18 to watch R. And when you start getting NR not yet rated, that is some pretty deep stuff. As a kid, your parents aren't supposed to be handing you nothing that is not yet. But my parents handed me Resident Evil when I was 9 years old. So when it first came out, we had Resident Evil 0, and we wasn't ready for it. We got stuck in the subway. We wasn't ready for it. So I just really want to get that out there. When they're talking about the mental health issues, studies have shown that the excessive media use can lead to depression. And I didn't know this. It turns out that it can lead to depression, probably because of the type of topics that they're looking at. Anxiety, where you could develop PTSD from all of the excessive police brutality videos that are out there. Low self-esteem from the overly scantily clad dressed individuals that consider themselves to be sexy, and you don't have that particular body type in young people. So this actually can become a bad thing, that they're watching too much of one thing and not having a wide variety of education to go on top of that, to lead them to understand that this is for entertainment purposes. This isn't the way you have to live your life, kind of thing. This lack of guidance in the children is actually starting to corrupt them. So the lawsuit claims that TikTok and Meta, which is going to be TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, are knowingly promoting harmful content to children. And that's the serious accusation that everybody is trying to work through. So the implications of this lawsuit are far-reaching and could have significant impacts on the way social media companies operate. So what happens with case law is that after somebody makes a decision, everybody else that falls in line with that type of lawsuit has to change the way they do business, because repetitive lawsuits can go out, which is designed as case law, where based on a judge's decision in another case, this exact same action or similar action was deemed unethical and unlawful. So if one judge says that it's wrong, if another judge says that it's wrong, and another judge says that it's wrong, you end up building up case law. Now, if the court rules in favor of the state of Arkansas in this particular lawsuit that Arkansas files against TikTok, it could lead to a major overhaul of the way these companies handle user data and content moderation, as I explained to you before. So the lawsuit itself is a complex one with many different threads and allegations. At its core, it's about accountability. Are these giant tech companies accountable to their users, or are they only accountable to their bottom line? The outcome of the lawsuit could have a profound impact on social media's landscape, and it's something we should all be paying attention to, especially if you're a content creator trying to get paid for content. You're also going to understand that as a content creator, based on how these laws are shifting, the way you produce your content on a platform that you understand is not limited to age, because notice user friendly selections for um your platform on YouTube, especially YouTube. But YouTube has this thing where there's a button that says that uh restricted for 18 and up. So you can do whatever you want to do. You can do whatever you want to do, knowing that it's for adults only. Because it's for adults only, guess what YouTube says? Well, if your content is for adults only, you don't qualify for ad sensitive. So you're not monetized unless it is universally non-restrictive, which means that you're going to have a problem there, because you have to make sure that you're somewhat censored to be able to add to people under the age of 18 to your followership, understanding that it is not going to be adults only. And that's where the demonetization comes from. So when we had that conversation yesterday where Fireball and Brickle Mode was saying that, oh, Elon Musk has made the internet, the First Amendment, more First Amendment. No, he didn't. All he did was make this platform that is primarily a newsworthy platform that's primarily going to be talking about business, where originally when Twitter was owned by its predecessor company, it was more entertainment based like TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram. Now that it's owned by Elon Musk, it's typically talked about, you have more CNN, CNBC, politics, mostly left side of the room or right side of the room, depending on which way you're facing. And it is mostly Republican news. And then you also have the business and finance and everything else that's up there. So it has become primarily an adult platform. Children can get on there, but not too many kids who want to get on there when they're only talking about, outside of sports, they're only talking about news. Because it's the podcast, not the podcast, because the platform is not limited to what it caters to, but it is being used by businesses and successful people. It is primarily passing around business and successful information, which means that random regular entertainment is not being passed around. And that's going to be what changes the way the people who experience Twitter will experience Twitter, because instead of somebody setting themselves on fire or making a provocative dance online or doing that water dance or something like that, instead of that being the trend on Twitter, it is Cybertrucks and robots and stock options and Bitcoin and cash flow that is running the rage right now. And that means that the people who jump on Twitter are less likely to be exposed to something harmful to their mentality, as opposed to somebody who is watching TikTok that is overly sexualized or in the direction of negative, inappropriate, and potentially violent content. Now, one of the interesting aspects of the lawsuit is the role of government in regulating social media. And should the government be stepping in to protect the users, or should the companies be left to regulate themselves? That's something that has not been debated. it is a debate right now that's been raging for years, and this lawsuit could be the catalyst for the change. The potential outcomes of this lawsuit are vast and varies. If TikTok and Meta are found guilty, it could lead to massive fines and changes to their business practices. On the other hand, if the court rules in favor, it could embolden social media companies to continue operating with relative impunity, meaning that they're not going to be responsible for what the people do on the platform, what the people see on the platform, and who connects to whose platform. As the lawsuit moves forward, it's clear that the public is divided on the issue, and some are calling for stronger regulations on social media, while others believe the companies are being unfairly targeted. They said the same thing about the tobacco company back in the day, but the tobacco company not only puts out billions of dollars of ads encouraging people not to smoke, they're still making billions of dollars of money for people who are still smoking. Whatever the outcome, one thing is certain. This lawsuit is watershed moments for social media, and it is one that we should all pay attention to. The reaction from the public has been swift and decisive, with many calling for greater accountability from social media companies. Meanwhile, the companies themselves have been quiet, preferring to let their lawyers do all the talking, and I wouldn't blame that. It's a strategy that may backfire as the public becomes increasingly distrustful of their motives. Now, Arkansas's uh, broader strategy comes into play because Attorney General Griffin's actions reflect a proactive approach by Arkansas's regulating social media platforms more stringently. This includes not only the lawsuit against TikTok, but also legal proceedings against other platforms like YouTube and Meta for their alleged negative impacts on youth as well. So just because they've already gone against TikTok and Facebook and Instagram don't mean that YouTube is free, because YouTube's doing the same thing. That YouTube set up an algorithm, you log in, you do what you got to do, and then after that, you're done. Like, whatever you find, you find. Whatever you put out, you put out. But their community guidelines are going to probably change based on the resolution of how Meta and TikTok are uh, challenged from the judge, because YouTube isn't going to want to be in a lawsuit if they haven't already been drug into a lawsuit, knowing that they have underage users on the podcast. But since they know that they have underage users on the podcast, since those underage users are not being restricted to underage content, where content creators should have a cross the board monetization platform that is for adults only, instead of having a monetization platform that is exclusive to universal promotions. The podcast itself, if you must be 18 or older, is going to be restricted. What YouTube has done lately is YouTube has put up a restricted mode that is automatically on most people's devices. And what that restricted mode does is any account that is not perceived as uh, willfully adult accounts is automatically thrown into a restricted mode, where you are not able to see the content that is 18 or over, even if you are over the age of 18. Now, you can go into your YouTube account and you can go to the selection where you find the restricted mode there. And if you guys need more information about that, you can just reach out and give me a holler, and I can show you guys where to go, because I had to do it on all of my devices. And I had to get a VPN on top of that to make sure that when I did that, that it was able to be undone, because some people's network providers have that restricted mode on there where you cannot turn off restricted mode. And if you have a VPN, you can turn it off. If you don't have a network that is restricting your access, or a platform with parental guidance on it that is restricting access, you can just go into your cell phone device and manually turn it off. But your web browser, not always that easy. You just have to change networks, or change the network restrictions so that you don't have those restrictions on your YouTube channel. When you turn that off, then you have a larger quantity of selections for YouTube Entertainment for your users. Now, the difference is that if you did turn off your restricted mode and you did have more accessibility to the internet, to the YouTube, you're now, especially if you're not above the age of 18, opening yourself up to a wider range of things that you probably should not be looking at if you're not over the age of 18, which is why YouTube put up the restricted mode in the first place. Now, that hurt the content creators starting in September, where a lot of the platforms are being negatively impacted and losing a lot of viewership because of the restricted mode. But some of the other platforms that are primarily over the age of 18 that either are utilizing VPNs or have turned off the restricted mode are no longer being negatively impacted by the change. You have to adapt and overcome. Smaller podcasts that just start out are probably going to experience a lot more difficulties with progression, because if you are doing conflictual content, or if you're doing adult content, not adult content like the hubs and stuff, not like OF or anything like that, but adult level content like police chases and violent crimes and anything like that, you're producing volatile content, and that volatile content could mis uh, uh, represent your platform as an adult only platform, which then eliminates everybody under the age of 18 and restricts everybody who has not turned off restricted mode. So you might want to be a little bit more ad friendly, which is actually forcing people to voluntarily be self censoring just so that they can get viewership, and be more self censoring just so that they can get monetized, instead of being able to freely say and do whatever they want to say, which is their First Amendment right. But again, as I told you guys before, uh, they are not required to pay you. They just can't stop you from saying whatever you want to say, as long as you are not doing anything visibly derogatory. So the Arkansas State strategy is going to aim to protect residents from perceived harms associated with social media usage. And Arkansas is taking a significant step to the ban on TikTok and the pursuit of legal actions against it. And the other social media companies like Meta will also be involved in these actions. So you might actually see that Meta stops getting aired in Arkansas. That'll be interesting to see. These actions are part of a broader national conversation about data privacy and the youth mental health and responsibilities of these social media platforms, that raises important questions about the privacy and accountability of the impact on these individuals. And we're going to be looking at how it is essential, as we move forward, that we find a way to stay vigilant and continue to hold these companies accountable for their actions related to the usage and mental health effects of the youth that is giving free reign access to these particular podcasts. As these legal battles unfold, they will likely shape the future and landscape of social media regulations in the United States. So, with that being said, I want to tell you guys thank you for watching the podcast today. And don't forget to leave comments below with your thoughts on the lawsuit. And if you want to stay up to date on the latest developments on social media regulations, be sure to check out some of my other videos that are going to be more insightful in analyzing how much we are going to be heavily impacted by the changes in social media production. With that being said, tomorrow, like I told you before, we're going to be talking about gold, silver, and Bitcoin. So make sure that you guys make time to come and check out the podcast tomorrow. As always, we air every night of the week at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, 5 Pacific. Sometimes we start a little bit later, and we still run at least about an hour on the podcast. And I strongly encourage that you go ahead and jump in and take a look at what we've got going on a daily basis, because we typically have something different every day. With that being said, I want to say, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you to make it make sense. So, ladies, make it make sense. Thank you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we're talking about this, that, and everything in between. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night.